Right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I'm really very, very happy to introduce one of Wales and indeed the United Kingdom's leading young composers, Jack White. I first got to know Jack White through Ballycumry. He wrote the score for Cinderella, but of course his repertoire is so much greater. And in the few minutes we've got, I'm going to go and explore that. I'm also going to say, because this is World Intellectual Property Day, how his musical compositions are protected by copyright and other intellectual property rights. But this is more about music than it is about the law. So, Jack, welcome, Croeso. Um,
Go somehow.
I'm going to. I could ask you a few questions in Cymraeg if you wanted, but
That's
um,
fine.
my Cymraeg say limited. I'm learning. Um, Can I just ask you about what you're doing right now? What musical projects you've got on right now?
At the moment, Jane, I'm doing a lot of arranging work actually for some choirs based in London. In terms of the individual composition work, I've got a few projects on the go at the moment. But the main force of my work at the moment for this last year has been arranging. That's because I'm actually studying a PGC course at the moment. So my time to actually write is unfortunately a bit limited this year. But once the course goes ahead, my time for writing will be free. So I'm really looking forward to that time to get back to doing a bit more composing. But as it stands at the moment, I'm arranging a lot of works for choirs in London.
Oh yeah, okay. I've seen some of those arrangements which are on your website,
That's correct.
like "Luck Be a Lady Tonight" and that kind of thing,
That's it.
and the ABBA songs and so on.
Yeah, I don't. Unfortunately, I don't get to pick the repertoire. So sometimes the arrangements are very enjoyable, and then other times they are less so. But it's just arranging is a really important skill, and I think I don't think we talk about it or really teach it enough in schools either. It's just sort of assumed that people have the correct skills for it, but actually, it's a very unique set of sub skills within composition to arrange something successfully for whatever medium.
Yeah. What sort of choirs are they? Are they adult choirs? Are they school choirs, or in between? Are they semi-professional, professional, or are they people who just love music?
It's mostly for adult choirs, based in London. I've done a few other arrangements for in my time for sort of string quartets and other things. Usually, kind of more occasion based, like weddings or for celebrations of such. But generally, they're for semi-professional choirs.
Yeah, I've seen some interesting choral work. My sister-in-law, who was until she retired, a teacher at a big London comprehensive school, a music head of music, and in her retirement, she took up singing and choir, actually a choir, singing and participating and running a choir. And the choir which she was involved with took people really just off the streets, didn't really even bother to audition them, but they made some lovely sounds, and shows what can be done. Shows what even those of us who are inexperienced and can do with a lot of work and a lot of guidance, and of course great music to sing to.
Absolutely.
Um, my favorite work of yours recently is when Voices Rise, which I think is you wrote a few years ago for the 40th anniversary of Manchester Camerata. Can you tell me a little bit about that competition? Who else was, how it came about? Who else was in it?
Yeah, I saw the competition advertised. I just thought I'd throw my hat in and have a go. Um, I did a little bit of research about kind of emblems and things that are important to people in Manchester, and
Mm.
the idea of the worker bee came out very strongly. So I tried to incorporate that's actually the sound of the worker bee. So at certain points in the performance, you might have heard there's a kind of buzzing sound that the choir were making, or I hope it sounds musical. It did in the performance. I hope it's come out on the recording. And incorporating that idea was really important for the choir because they obviously wanted something to celebrate their, I think it was their 40th anniversary, but they wanted something that was very clearly located in Manchester that they felt they had. that could celebrate their time spent in the city. So I managed to put all of those things together, and I wrote hopefully quite uplifting song, because it was supposed to be quite celebratory. And I think that's a nice thing to be able to do, to write something that is celebratory, because a lot of the music that I enjoy listening to and maybe writing even isn't that celebratory. It's more contemplative, or it's maybe a bit sadder. So actually, this was a little bit of a break for me in terms of writing something that was happy and celebratory, and that had just the ideas that people could kind of come together and sing and celebrate.
I think it certainly worked. I tell you what I was reminded of, um, a pre-war choir, nymphs and shepherds, ordinary schools in Manchester, and they produce a beautiful sound. And I think there's seems to be a quality. I know that Wales, particularly South Wales, is known for its choirs. I live near Huddersfield, and we're known for our choral society. But Manchester voices have a sweetness, I think. Maybe it's just a little bit of wishful thinking, but I think it worked anyway. I love those crescendos and cadences in your work.
Oh, yeah, thank you. It was really uplifting to hear what they've done with it. And they're a fantastic group, and they gave it a really good first performance. It was unfortunately curtailed by COVID, so the competition
Yes.
was from 2019, I think, just the end of it, and then the first performance of it was in 2021. So there was a little bit of a gap in the celebrations, but we got there in the end, I think.
Yeah. Is it likely to be performed in the near future anywhere where we can go and see it?
I have to get back in touch with the camera. I haven't been in touch with them this year just because of my time. They did perform it a couple of times after that original one, and I imagine as it's been specifically written for them, it's something they'll probably return to at some points, maybe on the anniversaries, or maybe just if they fancy an uplifting piece to sing.
Well, certainly like to see it. And where can we get a recording of it? I know it's on YouTube, but is there anything else that bearing in mind that you've got a recording copyright?
The copyright for that will actually be reside with the choir, because that wasn't something that I had any hand in. So I imagine if you wanted the recording of it, you could ask the choir directly. So because it wasn't I didn't organise the performance or the recording. So unfortunately, that will just be with the choir. It's my rights as a composer, but the recording itself will be with the choir.
Yeah, well, we'll find out where we can get hold of recording, and I know it's on YouTube. And YouTube is in St Anne's Church, which is a church I know well. Um, the other work which I really love is Cinderella, and I love the ballet. It's performed by a lot of companies, but unlike all the others, unlike Royal Ballet, unlike Dutch National Ballet, unlike English National Ballet, uh, Darius ditched Prokofiev and he chose you.
Yeah,
And I think he
all of them.
made a good choice
Oh,
as
thank
well.
you.
Though I do love the other score very much. I've seen it in so many versions, but it worked. Yours worked very well for his company and the talents that his company had at that time. And there was some humour in it, in the shoe bit, and of course he'd based it very much on the story of on Grimm's fairy tale, which some of the other performances don't do. Some of the other productions don't do. Um, when I think about music for ballet, I'm reminded of the relationship which Marius Petipa had with his composers, where he was actually just telling them, put this note here or this phrase there or whatever it happens to be. Where Darius and Amy, Darius James, I should say, and Amy Doughty, anything like Marius Petipa, or did they give you a free rein?
It was a really interesting process, actually. I'd worked with Mark Brew prior to that on a production, and that was kind of my first experience of working directly with a choreographer.
Oh, I think I know that work.
That was the Stuck in the Mud production.
Yeah, I know
And
that work.
I think because I worked with him on that one, and
Hmm.
then it was actually in Swansea, I think it was, that I met up with Darius and Amy, because they'd come to watch the company do that work, and then from that, we started talking about the potential of me writing something for them. So it was only really the second time that I'd worked with a choreographer on a Cinderella, and there was there was a few moments that I thought I'll share because they struck me as quite funny. So I think when you come to it from just the musical side, obviously you're working hard to tell the story, to construct the narrative, to paint the characters, and you're making sure that you're putting in musical ideas that can be then used by the choreographers. But one thing that did really surprise me was actually the kind of the emotional side of it for the dancers comes really late in the process for them. So when I brought the music to Darius and Amy, they were obviously thinking very physically in terms of the position of the dancers and what they would be required to do within the scene. And one standout incident for me was when Darius, I think he shouted at one of the dancers, you know, take the smile off your face, you're at your mother's grave, which is, but that sounds bad, but it encapsulates the dancer had kind of gone into dancing mode.
Yeah.
And for her, that included to look quite happy and presentable, but actually that wasn't what the scene was demanding. So it struck me that we were coming to a middle, but from very different points, because obviously as a composer, you're thinking about the emotion straight away as a fundamental basis for whatever scene or narrative you're communicating. But for the dancers, they're thinking much more about time, space, where they're going, and then the emotion comes right at the very end of that process. So it occurred to me that we were kind of getting to the middle, but from two two very different ends. And they were very accommodating, and we tried to make kind of the scenes that were quicker moving or had a sort of an end goal. We tried to kind of put those down first so that I could spend a little bit more time maybe being creative musically, because I think there were some differences between scenes that they could be a little bit more emotionally lingering, and maybe there could be some ambiguity. And then there were scenes that definitely had to have a kind of start and an end, and we had to push the narrative on, or there had to be a consequence at the end of that. And I think they liked what I did with the story. I think that the production that I saw, there was two separate productions, because I did one after the first one, but I included live instruments, although the music itself was largely the same. And they were great. They're such a professional company, and I learned a lot from working with them.
I think they're a great company. They are Wales's national dance company, national classical dance company,
Yes.
and in all but name. And they've got some great really talented dancers like Andrea Battaglia, or have had in their time, Crystal Lowe. I could go on and on and on. And you got presumably a lot of feedback from some of these people because, well, you've known them indeed from that work which you did in the very first work which you did, which was where the theatre was actually Llandudno or Colwyn Bay, wherever it was, North Wales.
Yes, yeah, the stuck in the mud.
Yeah, that was good. Can I now turn a little bit to how you became a composer and your career, education and early career? Can you tell me, first of all, where you were born and brought up and uh, went to school?
Sure. So I was born in Newport.
Oh,
I won't say how long ago, because you described me as a young composer in the introduction. I'm not sure if that's totally true anymore. And I went to school just up the road in Llantarnam, but unfortunately that school doesn't exist anymore. So it got turned into a housing development about 10 years ago. And they just really enjoyed getting involved in all the music that was on offer, the choirs and the orchestras and the music productions, etc. And then decided to head off to Oxford to study music. I read music for 3 years and really enjoyed my time there. I think I was maybe a bit apprehensive going there from a comprehensive school. Firstly, because I didn't really know if it was going to give me the experience that I was looking for. But when I was there, I met some incredible people who are still friends to this day. I'm glad that I went there. I don't have any regrets at all. Um, so there afterwards, I probably wasn't sure what I wanted to do for a little bit. I think I took a few part-time jobs, but in the end, music sort of grabbed me back, and I ended up then doing a master's in Cardiff University and staying on to do a PhD in electroacoustic composition. Um, and then just built up my portfolio during and then through my studies, and then after I completed my PhD, I then continued working as a freelance composer.
And well, can you remind me when you got your first commission to do to do a piece of music which is going to be performed in public?
I think my first, and I'll probably get this wrong, but if my mum watches this, she'll probably be telling me that it was way earlier than this. I think it was actually Stuck in the Mud.
Oh
I
yes. So,
think it was.
and I love that. Well, as I say, I know it's Stuck in a Mud, and I love that. That was the one, as I say, I saw it when it actually came to the North Wales coast, and I think Crystal and another dancer was lying on the beach, rolling on the beach, and then you had scenes in a railway station. It worked really well, and that's when I realised. And I also met Mark Brew at that time as well. So of course he put it together.
Yes.
Yes, it was great. Okay, now you've been working in the theatre. You've been working in the concert hall. You've been working well. You've been doing these arrangements. What about things you want to do? Have you got any really unfulfilled ambitions, like, for example, conducting the Vienna Philharmonic on New Year's Day, that sort of thing? Or writing music for it to be performed? Or maybe it wouldn't be performed on New Year's Day, but whenever they perform uh, um, modern classical music.
I think probably maybe opera or musical theatre.
All
Um,
right.
yeah, I've always had a little bit of an interest in musical theatre. I probably was stronger when I was younger, but because I think I've been arranging so many songs for musical theatre over the last couple of years, um, I've sort of been filled in on all of the greats of the last kind of 10 years and leading back. So I think a collaboration to write a musical would be really a really interesting proposition, or even opera. I love opera. Um, I was thrilled to find out that Peter Grimes is going to be in Cardiff this month. And yeah, just the whole concept of, I think as well, because opera is one of the, almost like ballet, I suppose. It's
It
under
is.
threat.
It's theatre.
It's under threat a lot at the moment, just because of the funding. Um, and I think if we end up losing it as an art form, we'll all be so much more culturally poor, because it's an incredible medium for expression. And I think probably over the last 10 years, they've done a lot of work trying to open up those experiences to as many people as possible, to kind of break down some of the barriers for participation. So they're doing a lot of really good work, and I just hope that that's kind of recognised.
Well, I really look forward to that. We do have a great opera company in Leeds, Opera North. It'd be great if you were to provide a score for us there. And they do have a very wide repertoire, and of course there's Welsh opera and
Yeah.
so many others up and down the country. I'll keep my ears to the ground, and I'll read
Thank you.
the notifications from the theatres and so on. So I'll look out for you. Um, before I actually turn off to talk about uh, intellectual property, you must have heard a lot of well, at Oxford and perhaps even earlier when you were in secondary school. Um, you must have had your favourites. Who are the composers would you say have influenced you most, particularly in your present work, your most recent work?
Um, I would say probably Benjamin Britten, who is one of my favourite composers. And probably more recently, anyone involving working with electroacoustics. Sahario, Adams, just quite a big list of people that have been quite experimental. Because at the moment I'm working on pieces that combine moving speakers with choirs. So I can't say too much about it at the moment, but I like that element of experimentalism within music, as long as the results are kind of within the parameters that most people will listen to. So I'm not sure if you listen to a piece called Islands or Anesoedd, which I wrote for the South Iceland Chamber Choir a few
I'm going to
years
listen
back.
to that.
That doesn't. It's not an electronic piece, but the ideas within it create a kind of electronic sound. And working with that choir on that piece was really interesting. And I kind of want to try to replicate some of the ideas of that, but actually using some electronic resources this time as well.
Okay, well, that's great. Now, as I said, this is World Intellectual Property Day on the 26th. We celebrate it every year, and this year the theme is music, and IP and protecting of music. Um, uh, Without copyright law, law in the rights of performances, I guess also other intellectual property rights which allow music to be created and distributed, like trademarks and so on, there wouldn't be a music industry. Um, uh, have you found in your career that the existence of a law has protected your work, your revenues, the revenues of your industry properly? Or is there anything you want to see us try to change to make it easier for for composers and musicians? I am aware that it is that piracy has always been a big problem, and it's possibly more of a problem now with um, digitization. Um, but we try to do our best. We try to do our best to combat plagiarism and infringement. Um, is it working for you, or are there things we need to do for you?
I think on the whole it works. I think creators are probably more clear of their rights now than they have been in the past, because I don't think the intellectual property was discussed maybe in school when I was going through that process. I think though now, because of maybe claims through YouTube or just the fact that electronic content is far more easily accessible, I think intellectual property has become a bigger concept now in people's imagination, and they're kind of safeguarding around it too. I think the problem probably comes in terms of distribution, where
Hmm.
you have companies legally exploiting intellectual property, but really not paying what they should for their to be able to do that. I think there's probably opportunity for artists to kind of club together and, dare I say, unionize to make sure that they're getting proper compensation for having their works used and exploited by companies. But that's not a new thing. I mean, companies, I think, will always try to act within their own interests. Um, but I think within those bands, they are clear they're not plagiarizing, or they're not infringing people's intellectual property, but whether or not they're exploiting it with them in mind, or whether they're exploiting it with their kind of bottom line in mind, that's probably a more fertile ground for questions.
Well, we'll be working on that. There are going to be representatives of the protection societies, lawyers, economists, brilliant people from Bangor University have written PhD theses on the subject. So we shall probably be talking all about this in the rest of the seminar. Well, thank you so much, Jack, for all this, for giving us some time. We know that you're a very, very busy man, and well, we will follow your career with great interest. And diolch yn fawr iawn.
Diolch yn fawr, Jane.
Bye.